Hey everybody, the person sitting outside drinking milk with a little bit of coffee, that's me, Clement. And the person waking up holding the camera, that's my girlfriend Taya. And together we are on a sea kayaking trip around one of the Adriatic Sea islands. Well, to be more precise, it's not just one island. We've seen 4 islands so far, and I think 2 more are on the way. Like every morning, the plan was to start paddling super early. And like every day, the plan failed miserably. So we usually start paddling around 11. Because in the morning, when you wake up, it just feels so good to stay in bed for a little while and then go snorkeling. And I have to make myself a cup of coffee, because drinking just milk would look kind of childish. And also, when you're on a sea kayaking trip, you're kinda sweaty, salty, dirty, smelly, stinking of fish, slipping on sharp rocks in a tent that's way too small. And a cup of coffee is kind of like a touch of civilization. And then you have to eat something and pack your gear, and even if the little bug is helping you, it's 11 o'clock before you know it. Now, before we go on, I just want to say I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be speaking from the start till the end of this movie. Now, hopefully it won't be just pointless babble. I want to give you some tips and advice on how to start your first sea kayaking trip, what I love about sea kayaking, what I hate about it, what kind of gear is necessary for this kind of trip, how to catch some fish for dinner, and finally also why we decided to paddle exactly around this island, why the island that was the reason for this trip turned out to be a disaster, and why we had a blast anyway. The whole movie is kind of like a crash course into sea kayaking. I hope you find it interesting and useful. So, why sea kayaking? Here I wanted to include a really deep and meaningful quote about the ocean. But I'm a little bit of a quote hater, so the only thing that caught my eye was a statement by a really famous deep sea explorer, Arthur Charles Clarke. It goes something like this. Why is our planet called the Earth? It's quite obvious that it should be called the ocean. Well, whether you like quotes or not, there's something about the ocean that draws people to it. And if you like the sea, I don't think you can find something that will bring you closer to it than a multi-day sea kayaking trip. Throughout the trip, you're either sitting right on the sea surface or on some beach just a few feet away from it. Every hour of your day revolves around the sea. When you compare a sea kayak with a motorboat, you're moving way slower. This gives you time to observe every nook and cranny of the coast that slowly passes by in front of your eyes. Lone lighthouses in the distance, towering cliffs, shallow reefs beneath your kayak. You'll also notice every little change on the sea surface. It can be as smooth as silk, when it feels like the sky has fallen into the sea and you're floating somewhere in between, flying by without even paddling. Or it can start dancing to the sea breeze or with a school of fish beneath the surface. There can be waves coming from behind, pushing you towards where you're going, or waves coming from the opposite direction, trying to stop you. On the other hand, a sea kayak is still fast enough for a real expedition. Sea kayak can also handle some waves and bad weather, so you don't have to run away at the first sight of wind. But it's still best to plan your trip so that you avoid seriously bad weather. Because the sea, as it is beautiful, it is also dangerous. You will also notice that with a sea kayak you're in stealth mode. Never have I seen so many animals from such a close distance. We saw dolphins jumping from the sea, huge tuna fish swimming under the kayak, huge vultures circling above the cliffs, seagull fighting for fish. I even almost picked up a snake when I was collecting firewood for our evening campfire. In the dark, the snake looked like an ordinary branch, but when it started moving, I got suspicious. Every now and then you even see a Homo sapiens mating on the beach. But in that case, I put the camera away. If you don't like paddling along the coast, watching the islands passing by, you can paddle straight across the open sea where you're completely alone. You can not only sing, but scream the lyrics of your favorite songs, even if you have no singing talent at all. At the end of the day, you stop on the beach that can only be reached from the sea. Even if there is someone there with a boat, they usually leave around 6 and go back to their seaside apartments. And then, the beach is yours. You start a fire and grill your catch of the day, if you were lucky of course. And then you bring that warm beer from your kayak, you sit down, open it, watch the sunset, and you're on the top of the world. This would also be the perfect time to start with the first crash course to sea kayaking tip. Always store your beers at the bottom of your kayak. This way they will be close to the cool sea water and won't be too warm even after a few days of paddling in the hot summer sun. Okay, I think I started getting a little bit too poetic here. So let me tell you about all the things that I hate about sea kayaking. Okay, first one. I hate it when you find a beach with just the right rocks that let you hang your hammock. You hang it, you lie down, and then that damn rock is just a few inches too far away, so you cannot push yourself with your arm. The second thing that really goes on my nerves are the rocks. How many times have you found the perfect rock? You pick it up and it's all shiny and beautiful. So you put it in your pocket to take it home. You find it a few days later when it's dry and you look at it and you're like, what the actual What else? Sometimes you're just sick and tired of paddling. Your arms are sore, your ass hurts from sitting in the kayak for hours, the wind is coming from the wrong direction, it's hot, you don't feel like paddling at all, and there is still 10 more kilometers to go. And you check the navigation on your phone and it looks like you're not even moving. Yeah, you're not moving because you're looking at the navigation instead of paddling and posting stories to Instagram and looking at memes. Start paddling and you'll start moving. And then you get really nervous and you just want to kick something. I also hate motorboats, like a lot. In the morning till around 10 a.m. the sea is just so peaceful and then...
a veš kaj tako, da ene 9, pol 10 je čisti mir. Pa ne vem, a te z motornimi čovni, a ima to prav nek pravil, da ob 10, ko si kavo spijejo, morajo vsi naenkrat gasa štartati. Pa sam z vseh strani.
Ludenca.
Ker neki, naj si vesla kupijo.
Now, let's go over all the things that you need for a sea kayaking trip. Obviously, the first two pieces of equipment needed are sea kayak and a paddle. The rule here is the lighter the better, but that means also more expensive and more susceptible to damage. For the paddle, that's not really a problem, just don't throw it into the rocks. But when it comes to your sea kayak, it's a bit more complicated. When you stop paddling, you have to pull your kayak onto the beach. Unfortunately, not all beaches are made of soft sand. When you're dragging your lightweight kayak over sharp rocks, it can get damaged. Kayaks made out of durable plastic material, like the red one here, are virtually indestructible. Sea kayaks are also much longer than regular kayaks. This is why they are faster and they hold the direction better. Sea kayaks also have separate storage compartments. These compartments will hold all your gear while you're paddling. They will also keep your kayak afloat if your cockpit gets filled with water. Obviously, you should close them before you start paddling. A really important feature on a sea kayak is also a rudder. Kayak uses the rudder to show that it's happy. A rudder also helps your kayak to go straight and helps you to steer left or right. Going straight is more difficult than you might think. If the wind is blowing from your left or right, it will turn the nose of your kayak into the wind. This is known as weathercocking. This turning left or right from the direction in which you want to paddle can be stopped with the rudder. And with the rudder you can paddle as you can see it in the video. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. If you're unlucky and your sea kayak, same as mine, does not have a rudder, then from time to time you will suffer. And instead of paddling left, right, you will paddle left, right, left, 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 left. Maybe this doesn't sound so bad, but if you have to paddle 5 miles using only one arm, you can believe me, you won't like it. People will also start to wonder why one of your arms is so ripped. And after some one-arm paddling, all you want to do is... You will also notice that your paddling GPS track won't look like a straight line, but more like something like this. After a stage like that, it really feels good to jump into the sea and cool down your head. While we're looking at the map of our trip, let's go over the whole route that we did. Without counting all the I don't have a rudder left and right detours, we have in 5 days covered around 90 kilometers. That's around 56 miles. Okay, so what else do you need? You will need the propane stove and maybe one extra propane can. Then you need the pot, a pan and a few cups. You need tea, coffee, walkie-talkie. Okay, maybe that's not mandatory. You need a few power banks to recharge your electronics, then you absolutely need some dry bags. The best ones are from Dry Tide, so if you're not sure which ones to get Dry Tide dry bags. Here I have one 5-liter dry bag that is always in front of me on the top of the kayak. I fill it with all sorts of small items that I need close at hand, like snacks, power bars, sunglasses, walkie-talkies, phone, sunscreen, zinc, everything that I might need while pedaling. A headlamp and a few smaller cotton bags to organize your things inside the dry bag so you can find them faster can also come in handy. Then I have 2 more of these 5-liter dry bags. These are just super useful and versatile. I use one for my DSLR camera and the second one I use for my drone. The bigger 15-liter dry bag is for my sleeping bag. Sleeping bag is one of those items that you don't want to get wet, especially if it's filled with down and feathers. Then I have this 30-liter backpack that holds all my clothes and my beach towel. This backpack is also waterproof. It can be dropped into the sea and things inside will stay dry. If you will be sea kayaking in summer, then you absolutely need some sort of cotton sheet or a tarp for shade. Tie a piece of string on each of the 4 corners, and when you make a pit stop on the beach, you will quickly be able to set up a temporary shelter from the sun. Oh, and use sunscreen. If your trip will last more than a day or 2, and if you have lots of things that need charging, then portable solar panels are also useful. These are 25-watt solar panels. This means that you can charge a regular 10,000 mAh power bank in approximately 1 day. Just make sure that your solar panels are facing the sun as much as possible. Also, always charge your power banks, never charge your phone directly. Why? Uneven current from solar panels can damage the batteries. It doesn't matter if you know how to swim, you will also need a life jacket. A foldable spare pedal is also useful as a backup. You will also need to carry enough water. I used, I think, 6 1.5-liter water bottles during a 5-day trip, but I must say that I don't drink much when compared to other people. You probably know if you're a person that needs lots of water each day or not. I managed to push my diving flippers, scuba mask and a split down port into the tail of the kayak. Because what's the point of a sea kayaking trip if you cannot snorkel in warm sea for a while? And while you're watching me wasting time in the sea, I want to explain why I always put all my belongings into dry bags. First, accidents happen, and if you're clumsy like me, things can go overboard and land in the sea in no time. If they're stored inside the dry bag, nothing will happen to them. Second, while you're paddling, waves can push water over your kayak and water can quickly reach places that it shouldn't. And finally, if you're on and next to the sea all the time, things can get damp. Even things you don't use, like clothes you have never put on, not to mention your sleeping bag or your electronics. They're all better off if they are stored away from the moisture that comes from the sea. Dry bags will also help you organize your things inside storage compartments. Just make sure they are not too big or they won't fit inside your kayak. Bags up to 30 liters work best. Again, I highly recommend dry-tight dry bags. I use the storage compartment right behind my seat for food. When you're loading your kayak, it's best to put all the heavy things right behind you, so they don't influence your kayak center of gravity. Here's also where I keep duct tape. You can use it to quickly repair the kayak if it starts leaking. A neoprene top is great for bad and rainy weather, because it keeps you warm even if it's wet. Then there was the 30-liter dry bag that I use for all sorts of bigger items, like the sunshade tarp or sleeping pad and so on. This black neoprene thing is called a spray skirt. It keeps the water out of your cockpit when the sea gets rough. A knife is a must if you catch fish or pirates. Then I have 2 water bottles. The bigger one is for drinking water, so you can quench your thirst while you're paddling, and the smaller one is for when you're in the middle of the sea and you really have to go pee. It's kind of important not to mix them. Then I have a small sponge to get the water out of my kayak and some simple fishing gear. Every sea kayak also comes with lots of straps, nets, bungee cords, etc. These help you attach extra luggage to the top of your kayak. Here you will see the front storage compartment with a manual water pump pushed into the nose. You can use it to empty the kayak if more than just a little bit of water comes in. Probably needless to say, but all the storage compartments should be closed while you're paddling. A few words about my pedal. You can choose the length of the pedal depending on the width of your shoulders, width of your kayak and your paddling style. Length of some pedals can also be adjusted a little bit. You can also adjust the angles of each of the blades. Blades at an angle becomes useful when you're paddling against stronger headwind, so your air resistance is lower. And one more time, when it comes to pedals, the weight is the main factor. Lighter is better. You'll be holding the pedal in your arms and in the air the whole time of your trip. So every bit of weight difference, well, it makes a difference. When you're resting, you usually put your pedal onto the kayak. If a wave comes and knocks your pedal into the sea and you're not fast enough to pick it up, well, you could be f***ed. This is why a short pedal leash is used. Compulsory equipment is also a hat that stops sunstroke and puts shade over your eyes.
Baby, you're out of time. Baby, 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 you're out of time. Che felicità. Znam besedila. I felicità. Ti sem šel kot rekrabin pir.
Oh my god, I almost forgot. The most important item that you need on sea kayaking trip is a Bluetooth speaker. Bluetooth speaker needs to be waterproof. The first one I had, I was a bit too confident. I even dropped it into the sea on purpose, so now I have a new one. With this one I'm a bit more careful, but if you drop some water onto it and then when the low tones kick in and you can see the water drops are bouncing off the speaker, that shouldn't be a problem. Waterproof speaker can take it. Equally important, if you'll film yourself singing, make sure you at least know the lyrics.
Time.
While you're struck by how calm the water can be here on the Adriatic Sea, and while you're watching all the stupid angles from which the sea kayaking can be captured, let me tell you a few words about fishing from your sea kayak. Here we have two options. You can either fish from a kayak that is standing still, or you can fish by dragging something behind while your kayak is moving. Now, if you want to get somewhere, then you probably should be moving, so the first option is out. This is why an artificial fishing lure that you drag behind your kayak while you're paddling is a better option. I think this is called trolling. You need a piece of foam or something that will float if you drop it into the sea. Then wind about 20 meters of thicker fishing line on it and put a swivel at the end. Tie another 5 meters of a bit thinner fishing line to the swivel and put an artificial lure at the end. That's it. Ideal speed for trolling is somewhere between 2 and 4 kilometers per hour, which is a bit slower than average paddle speed. This is why I usually catch a fish while I'm waiting for someone or while I don't feel like paddling. The thickness of your fishing line and the size of the lure depends on the size of the fish that you want to catch. I usually use small lures between 6 and 8 centimeters long. Then again, with those few fish I have caught so far, I don't want to be too smart. There are just so many different lures, you just need to find one that works for you. So, where did we want to go and what was the goal of this trip and why in the end we didn't even stop there? These two islands look like two sick atolls from somewhere tropical when you check them on Google Maps. But when you make it there, you'll find that they could be called something like Seagull's Nest. They're both full of screaming seagulls, like millions of them. Seagulls that are fighting, screaming, shitting. It's an interesting sight to see, but it's not a place where you want to set up your tent for the night. It was already late, but we still decided to paddle to the next island. You can see how the next island looked from the drone footage that's playing in the background. We set up our tent right on the north tip of the island. Every now and then you also stop at the island that has a restaurant with some really good seafood. So it's a good idea to have some money with you. If you're in your mind already planning your first kayaking trip, you might be interested in how many kilometers can you paddle each day. We have covered somewhere between 15 and 25 kilometers in a day. Strong paddlers can do twice as much, but this of course also depends on what do you want from your sea kayaking trip. Do you want to paddle the whole time or do you also want to swim, fish, snorkel and lie in a hammock staring at your toes? During first few trips you'll also probably get some blisters on your palms, so maybe it's not the best idea to plan an ocean crossing for your first trip. Speaking of blisters, with all the talking I can feel one forming in my mouth. I'll take it as a cue to shut up and end this movie.